Good morning, Your Honor.
Good
The
morning.
Spanish interpreter from the line.
It does not appear that we have any Spanish speakers, so you can be excused.
Okay, would you like the interpreter to wait for more confirmation or just disconnect from the jail?
It's up to you. I don't have any preference. I mean, I don't see anything, so,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interpreter will now disconnect. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Hey, can I ask you? So this is kind of where I'm still confused. There's those three folks from yesterday that was talking. So we'd said it would be here in form on February 21st. It's the one we said now is it replacing this?
Yeah, because I don't know why, for whatever reason, they got cut twice. I think somebody messed up on that, but you can give them the same date as February 21st. I will always
Change it in the.
Yeah. I don't know why we have to.
Sounds good.
Today or just right now? Okay. Okay, so you guys don't have on the Okay, that's
Do you think there's any issue if we just don't have them bring up those three?
No.
Yeah, because we did it all yesterday. Okay. Do you want me to just approve it here on this end then? Okay.
Oh, number 2. So on the house, he's number 1. Yeah, we go all that all and GPs. And then we go and friends. And the next one is ANOPS. And then by EI. Yeah. No. Yeah, there was a hearing that I was in yesterday. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I don't know that. I just we're gonna set them all on. Okay,
Okay. No, they're back with you.
their files are still in.
Okay. Does the jail know we're ready to get started? Okay.
No, but I can do it without asking. I know, I can do it without asking. Okay, we're ready. Okay, bye. We asked him to do that earlier, but I can do that.
Definitely, yeah. A little bit. Okay. Sure.
Your Honor, good morning. This is the jail, sir. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? Thank you.
We're living it, sir. We're living it.
Correct.
So I understand there's 3 of the review hearings we do not have to see.
Correct.
Thank you. Let me get you Mr. Gallegos.
Morning, Your Honor. Steve Knox, Public Defender's Office here today.
Good morning. Doing well, thanks. And you?
Always an adventure at the jail.
Oh, yes. Mr. Poston, good morning. How are you?
Good pleasure. I'm really treating yourself.
Doing well. Your audio is a little choppy, Mr. Poston. I don't know if there's something, a fan or something that's going.
Can you hear me now, Your Honor?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
Gotta love the fact that a phone works better than a computer.
Yep.
Your Honor,
Yes.
we had a bit of a situation in the jail. Mr. Stewart and Mr. Gallegos are on their way. I have Lindville here if you want to do that first.
Sure, that's fine. Okay, good morning. Can you state your name, please?
Adria, Lindville.
Ms. Lindville, we've got you here on a few matters today. We're going to take them one at a time. First matter we're here for today is for some new charges for possession of dangerous drug, possession of narcotic drug, and possession of drug paraphernalia. These are felony offenses. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you to assist you. The state is recommending as to these charges that bond be set in the amount of $2,500 plus release to pretrial services. If bond is posted, Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor, looks like she's still eligible for steps. Pretrial was a touch slow getting us all of the information, but it seems that the state's biggest concern here is that she's a 6 out of 6 NCA FTA. The main reason the state wants to review this is because some of her drug past seems to be marijuana, and we're trying to discount that in terms of eligibility for steps. So 2,500 due to the flight risk and the history, but we still want to see if she qualifies for steps.
Do you want me to try to set a smart hearing on that or no?
Yes.
Okay, and then, we'll give the defendant a moment to talk to counsel. Counsel, when you're ready, go ahead and let the court know.
We have just a moment, Your Honor. I'm checking a couple things. Your Honor, Miss Lindville receives methadone services. She's connected with a provider in Tucson for that. She has family that she can reside with. Whether she's eligible for steps or ends up with a smart case, either way, those are best performed on the outside. I do understand the concern being level 4 assessment from pretrial. It's important to note that even on level 4, according to pretrial's matrix, there's still a 60% chance of likelihood of appearing and an 85% likelihood of coming in without new charges if released to the community. For all those reasons, I recommend release to enhanced supervision of pretrial, and let's make sure she gets her smart hearing.
Okay, thanks, everybody. So what the court's going to do at this time, in looking at the information before the court, there is a substantial failure to appear history for Ms. Lindville. So in order to secure her appearance at future proceedings, court will set bond in this matter in the amount of $350 cash or secured with release that pretrial services if bond is posted. The court will set a smart hearing January 29, 2025, 9:00 a.m., as well as affirm the preliminary hearing February 3rd, 2025. I know that that's sort of nonsensical in some way, but at the same time, I don't think I can waive the preliminary if I'm not in custody. The court will order Ms. Lindville for the felony charges, no alcohol or illegal drugs, follow monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. Court will appoint the Pima County Legal Defender's Office to represent you. Ms. Lindville, did you have any questions about the steps or smart court program? Is Mr. Knox able to?
So you're being held on $350. I've got your attorney's number here.
Okay.
You'll be assigned by tomorrow. You have court on the 29th to find out if you're eligible for a diversion program. If you're in, make sure you accept the transport. If you're bonded or released in some manner, make sure you show up for that.
Okay. No, I don't.
Okay, and so Ms. Lindville, we also have city court charges for you that I'm gonna go over right now. These are for failure to appear for prior drug offenses, which I had mentioned previously. Looks like we have 3 different cases since 2023. So what the court at this time is going to do, based upon the information before the court's going to order setting bond as the city court matters in the amount of $150, cash or secured. Order that you not possess or consume any alcoholic beverages or illegal drugs. Court will appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. And then your next court date in city court is January 29, 2025, 1:30 p.m. At city court with Judge Million, it appears. And so $350 bond in the felony case, $150 in the city court case. If you post those, you still have conditions of release to abide by. Any questions before we conclude today?
No.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. You're excused.
And Your Honor, I have Mr. Stewart and Mr. Gallegos both in the courtroom. We're gonna do Stewart first, if that's okay.
That sounds good. Thank you. That was. Oh, sorry. Let me actually.
Last name, Stewart.
Okay. Good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Jason Alexander Stewart.
Mr. Stewart, we're here today for initial appearance on a couple of charges. We have operating a mechanism while the vehicle is unattended. It's like 2 counts. These are misdemeanor offenses. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Court understands that you're being held on bond in a separate matter. Is that your understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the court isn't here to resolve that issue today. I'm not in a position to be able to reduce or eliminate bond in that case. So regardless of what the outcome is for today, you're going to be continuing to be held. In light of the charges that are asserted, the court is going to institute bond in this case in the amount of $1,000 cash or secured. Court will direct that you not go to the incident location related to these new charges for the vehicle. Court is appointing counsel for you for these new charges. That's going to be Stan Fitzgerald, and his contact information will be provided to you on the paperwork. Your next court date will be at Sahuarita Municipal Court, January 28th, 2025, 3:00 p.m. for a case management conference. And so that'll be your next hearing as to these new charges. Do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. I seen the municipal court yesterday for, sounds like the exact same charges. Are these new charges on top of the operating mechanism? I was just in court yesterday morning for the same charge.
So these charges would have arisen around January 15th or 16th.
Yeah, I was just seen yesterday by the judge for these in Sahuarita over video.
Your Honor, this is the jail. I had some really new citation numbers for these charges as opposed to the ones that were seen yesterday.
Okay. All right.
Same
Then
charges.
what I'll say, Mr. Stewart, go ahead and talk to Mr. Fitzgerald about this. And if there is some sort of duplicative charges or something of that sort, you may be able to resolve that in due course. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, sir. You're excused.
Fitzgerald, they'll have paperwork with Fitzgerald's number. Okay, so those are, I actually don't know. Okay, I don't have that. If it's in Florida, it would be.
Okay, and these are misdemeanor charges that I just read.
All right. Good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Daniel Ramon Vargas Gallegos II.
Okay, sir, you were here today on, like there was a warrant that was issued out of Miranda Municipal Court for failure to appear for some misdemeanor offenses related to theft and drug paraphernalia. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And then, give me one moment, just taking a look at something really quick. It looks like we also have a warrant that was issued for an arraignment that was missed on or around January. Get that date here really quick. They were for charges arising out of April 30th, 2024. Looks like there is also a probation violation warrant that's been issued as well with Superior Court. All right, so it looks like we have a couple of warrants that were issued for failure to appear that we're dealing with here today. Okay, and so because we have the probation warrant that's been issued, regardless of the court's determination today as to these different charges, the court, you would be remaining incarcerated nonetheless. And so in order to afford sufficient time credit in each of these matters, what the court's going to do is, in the Superior Court matter related to failure to appear, the court is going to institute bond at a reduced amount, the amount of $500 cash or secured, and let you know that there's a criminal court that's going to be January 29, 2025, 1:30 p.m. And that'll be as to the failure to appear, prior failure to appear as to the narcotic charges that arose in 2024. And then court will be appointing the legal defender's office to represent you as to that warrant and those matters. And then as to the Miranda matter, the court is going to, in order to ensure, again, time credit for any of those pending charges, the court will institute bond in the amount of $250 cash or secured with the Miranda City Court. Counsel will be appointed Janet Altschuler, and court additionally will indicate there is a case management conference set today, 12:00 p.m. at Miranda City Court. And so those are your upcoming hearings, sir. Do you have any questions at this time?
No, thank you.
Okay, then when you're ready, you're excused. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Hope.
Oh.
Good, Hope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Favorite place. Glad you're here.
Right down the middle, we're going to proceed. Okay. Kelly, you're first. Come on up. Everybody else have a seat. Sit down accordingly. No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's the judge.
Hello.
Good morning. Can you state your name, please, ma'am?
Chelsea Capella.
Ms. Capella, you're here today on a misdemeanor charge of criminal damage. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. In review of the probable cause statement and related paperwork, this time what the court's going to order is that you be released on your promise to appear at future proceedings. However, there are going to be some conditions of release that you need to abide by. No acts of domestic violence going forward, and no alcohol or illegal drugs. Not to have any contact at the present time with the individual Julian Scott until further court order. And you're not to go to his residence or workplace. Is that a shared residence?
But
All right. Court will then order then that you can return one time with a police escort to pick up any belongings. And your next court hearing in this matter is going to be what's called an arraignment. That's going to be on February 21st, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. And that'll be at the Pima County Justice Court with Judge Steele. So that'll be your next court date, man. Make sure that you appear. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. Do you have any questions at this time?
No, sir.
Then you are excused. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day. 21st, right? Write it down.
Sorry, Your Honor. Say the 21st.
February 21st at 10:30.
Correct.
Okay.
Here, ma'am. This will help a little.
Thank you, sir.
Dominguez. M. All the way up, right hand side, please. You're right here. Sit down.
And the judge is right here.
Hello.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Dominguez. Can you state your full name, please?
Damaris Arles Ruiz Dominguez.
Ms. Dominguez, you're here today on a couple of misdemeanor matters for assault and disorderly conduct. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And you do have some family members present here in the courtroom from which we're streaming this who are in attendance as well. In review of the information before the court will be releasing you on today's date on your promise to appear at future proceedings. There are going to be some release conditions, however, not to engage in use of alcohol or illegal drugs, and additionally no acts of domestic violence to be perpetrated. Your next court date is going to be an arraignment at the Pima County Justice Court, February 21st, 2025, 10:30 a.m. And that date will be written down for you. Make sure that you appear at future proceedings. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. And then we're doing another one of these hearings again. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
Thank you.
Okay, then you're excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again.
Good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Abraham Enriquez.
Mr. Manriquez, you're here today. It looks like there were some warrants that were issued for failure to appear for some prior misdemeanor offenses in 2023. You do have a right to remain silent as to these pending charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm seeing 3 separate case numbers where you failed to appear at prior proceedings. That does give the court some concern. If the court was to permit you to an additional opportunity to resolve these charges, is that something that you can do?
Yes, sir.
And do you,
Yes, sir.
do you pledge to the court that as to these different matters that if you're released on today's date that you'll timely appear at all future proceedings?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Usually with these amount of failures to appear, I usually don't release individuals, but I'm going to give you a chance here, Mr. Manriquez. Make sure that you appear at these future proceedings. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. And I suspect that the next person who would hear this matter would not be as flexible.
Thank you.
So I have some paperwork to fill out here on the computer, so just give me one moment, but just indicate you are being released on all three of these different matters, but you must make sure that you appear.
Yes.
All right, so just to make sure that you're aware, the next court hearing that you have, it should be the same for all three cases. February 21st, 2025. That's at 8:30 a.m. with Judge Steele at the Justice Court. So make sure that you appear. I'm just going to double check that these dates are the same before we release you back. It's looking like perfect. Awesome. Okay. So just one moment for us to get this all worked out, then you'll be all set. Yes. Okay. Any questions, sir, before you're excused?
That's it. Just thank you for the opportunity.
Welcome. Please don't make me look like a fool. Please go to your hearings. Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's what I was saying. Show up. If, all right, you're all set.
Smith,
Good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Dwayne Jeffrey Smith.
Mr. Smith, you're here today. It appears on a few misdemeanor charges for disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. It appears, can the jail confirm, do we have a probation hold on Mr. Smith?
Yes, Your Honor, he was both on a probation violation out of Pima County Jail.
Okay. So, and that's what I thought. Okay, so Mr. Smith, normally with these misdemeanor charges, the court would have a little bit more latitude. It looks like we may have also picked you up on a warrant as well for prior, that was issued back on September 6th. In any event, we have a alleged probation violation and you're being held currently on that. Regardless of what the court would do today, the court wouldn't be able to release you until that probation issue is resolved. So in order to afford you time credit for the time that you'll spend incarcerated, the court is going to set bond in this matter in the amount of $500 cash or secured. Court will order as conditions of release if bond is posted, everything else is resolved. No alcohol or illegal drugs, no acts of domestic violence. And counsel will be appointed in this matter. And let me pull up the attorney we have. That will be I'm going to go with Anna Dennis for your assigned counsel. Next court hearing in this matter will be an arraignment that's going to be heard tomorrow at 1:00 p.m. with Judge Ball at the Justice Court. So that's January 23rd, 2025, 1:00 p.m. with Judge Ball. And Mr. Smith, just make sure that you appear at all future proceedings in this matter. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued. Do you have any questions before we conclude?
No.
Okay, then you're excused. Thank you, sir.
You don't post that until you figure out that felony probation hold, because you're probably without nothing. Yeah, okay, okay, okay.
okay.
All right, good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Lopez Davis.
Are you in jail? Go take some.
I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Mr. Sorry, can you repeat your name? I just didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Alfonso,
I'm already on this court.
Alfonso Lopez Davis.
Okay. Hold on a second. Let me go ahead and get your file. Okay, so Mr. Davis, we've got you here today on a looks like a failure to appear for prior charges relating to resisting arrest and being in a park unlawfully. To ensure your appearance at future proceedings, the court is going to set bond in this matter. $250 cash is secured. Any prior release conditions are affirmed. Your next court date in this matter is a video review, January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. That'll be with Judge Verena over at the city court. In general, make sure that you appear in future proceedings. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. Any questions before we conclude? Then you're all set. Thank you, sir. You're excused.
Wait, Mr. Davis.
Wait,
Hold on, sir.
what's your name, sir?
Alonso Lopez.
I think you got the wrong. Yeah, exactly. Your Honor,
Yes.
I think we had a bit of a hiccup. Who did you just see in front of you?
I just saw Mr. Davis, Alfonso Davis.
Full name.
That's right.
Middle name Lopez? Yeah.
Okay, Your Honor, we're good.
Okay, we're good.
There's another Alfonso there, but there's.
Okay.
Agular Serrano, who's that?
He's all set?
I'm pretty sure the order. We'll get it today. I'm pretty sure.
All right. Good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Alexander Aguilar Serrano.
Mr. Aguilar Serrano, we're here today for, looks like it's a drug paraphernalia charge, possession charge. Since it's a misdemeanor offense, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Jail, can you verify whether there's a hold right now on Mr. Aguilar Serrano?
We are showing the Superior Court hold, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So then, in that case, then, Mr. Aguilar Serrano, what the court's going to be doing is there's a hold right now placed on you by the Superior Court. So no matter what the court was inclined to do today with your release for the city court charges, the court is going to be unable to do that. So what the court's going to do is, the court's going to set bond as to the city court charges to indicate to allow for time served in the amount of $50 cash or secured. Court will appoint the city public defender's office to represent you since you're remaining incarcerated as to these charges. Not to possess any alcohol or illegal drugs as a condition of release. And your next court date in this matter will be on January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. at the city court with Judge Maldonado. Make sure in general to appear at future hearings. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. Any questions before we conclude?
That's it.
Okay, thank you, sir. You're excused.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Okay, good morning, ma'am. Can you state your name, please?
My name is Terry Chappelle.
Okay, Ms. Chappelle, you're here today on a number of failures to appear in city court over like 1, 2, 5, 9 that have been that arose in 2022. So these are misdemeanor offenses. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
What's my offense? I'm sorry. I wasn't clear on what I did wrong. Because I was not read my rights when headed into counties.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly then go over the charges that we have. We have on one citation, we have assault and disorderly conduct that occurred in 2022. On another citation, we have criminal damage and disorderly conduct. On the next citation, we have assault, criminal damage, and disorderly conduct. The final one was criminal damage and disorderly conduct. So for all the failures to appear on that one, the court is going to be setting bond in this matter, $250 cash or secured. In order to secure appearance, the court will appoint the city public defender's office to represent you, and any prior release conditions are affirmed. Next court date in this matter is going to be January 29, 2025, 1:30 p.m. with Judge Million. And so that'll be your next court date in city court. Any questions, ma'am, at this time?
Yeah, I thought this was a 24 hold. I wasn't aware of any of the charges. And
Sure. And so what I would suggest is to talk to the city public defender's office about that. They may be able to assist you on that argument, okay?
So I'm not, this isn't a 24-hour hold.
No, you're held on a bond, so $250.
What if I
You
can't?
call the city public defender about that.
What if I can't call anybody if I'm locked up? Though? What does that mean? Am I locked? I mean, I don't know where my charges even. Well, now I am, I guess. I didn't do any of those things.
Then call the city public defender.
Okay, call the city
Yeah.
public. And what's his number? Can I have it?
There'll be a different piece of paper they'll give you with that.
We'll walk and talk. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chappelle.
Alfonso Gallegos.
Where's my paper? I don't even have my
All right, good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Alfonso Francisco Gallego.
Mr. Gallego, you're seen here today on a misdemeanor charge of assault. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. In review of input from pretrial services and additionally the probable cause statement, the court is going to order that you be released on today's date with some conditions of release. Not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, commit no further acts of domestic violence, not to possess any firearms or weapons, and any weapons shall be surrendered to local law enforcement. Your next court date in this matter, following your release, February 24, 2025, 10 o'clock a.m. with Judge Hale at City Court. Make sure that you appear at that hearing. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. Any questions, sir, at this time?
No, Your Honor.
And you're excused. Thank you.
Dominguez.
Morning, ma'am. Can you state your name, please?
Lluvia Dominguez.
Ms. Dominguez, we've got you here today on, looks like two misdemeanor counts of assault and disorderly conduct. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And just to let you know, you do have some family members present here in the courtroom who are observing the proceedings. In review of the information before the court at this time is going to order that you be released on your promise to appear at future proceedings. You do have some conditions of release, however. You're not to engage in use of alcohol or illegal drugs and commit no further acts of domestic violence. Your next court date in this matter is what's called an arraignment. It's at the Justice Court, February 21st, 2025, 10:30 a.m. You need to appear at that hearing and future hearings. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. Do you have any questions at this time?
No, Your Honor.
In that case, you are excused. Thank you.
Gatlin.
Hello.
All right. Good morning, ma'am. Can you state your name, please?
With the Gatlin.
Ms. Gatlin, we are seeing you today. It appears on two new charges of aggravated assault and disorderly conduct. In addition, we have a prior failure to appear for assault and shoplifting charge for 2024. So as to these matters, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. It also appears that you were previously released on a superior court matter. Do we have any current holds jail right now for the defendant?
As of right now, Judge, there are no additional holds.
Okay. Ms. Gatlin, in order to ensure your appearance at the next proceedings in light of the prior failure to appear and in light of the new charges, the court is going to order setting bond in this matter in the amount of $500 cash or secured with conditions of release being not to possess any alcohol or illegal drugs, possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and commit no further acts of domestic violence. The court will appoint the city public defender's office to represent you at this time. Your next court date is a video review, January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. And so that's January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. for video review with Judge Cerrillo. And then any questions at this time, if you need to confer there with counsel, if they're willing to assist you, I'd allow you to do that as well. Which one was that? I think I did. Is it not showing up? Okay. Yeah, I can, well, a little bit of a delay.
Okay, Your Honor, defendant would like to speak.
I have the one that said the failure to appear. I took care of that one because I had a court date on the 6th and on the 7th. So that one's already been taken care of. They combined it though, like the cases together. And so like my next court date for them is on March 11th. But I already took care of that one.
The charges by themselves, even despite that, are of the nature where I would still likely be imposing bond in this case. I'm a little bit unsure about the circumstances, such that I would feel comfortable releasing you as to those charges anyways. And I don't have confirmation of what you're telling the court right now. So what I would suggest is contact the city public defender that is assigned to you and see if they can assist you further, but the court's ruling is going to remain the same for now. Okay.
So just $500 bond and it's cash.
After secured, once you post that, you can be released. You do have those additional release conditions that I stated as well.
Okay,
Okay. With that, you are excused. Thank you, ma'am.
thank you. And I can go use the phone.
That's up to them.
Okay, thank you.
It's gonna be filed next.
All right. Good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Skyler Ph.
Mr. Field, you're here today on a felony charge of prohibited possessory misconduct involving weapons. This is a class 4 felony. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you to assist you. The state is recommending that bond be set in the amount of $2,500 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor, the defendant sold a pistol allegedly to a pawn shop. It's a well-documented transaction. The defendant is a prohibited possessor, is on probation for a DV offense. And this indicates two things. One, he possessed it. Two, he somehow obtained it. And three, he didn't follow the orders, which were to turn them over to law enforcement. $2,500.
And Mr. Knox?
Your Honor, the offense alleged is over a year old now. He's stayed out of trouble since then. He has no felony history whatsoever. Look, I apologize. I'll split up my argument here. I need one moment.
Okay.
He's got his own safe residence and a job. Next shift that he works is Saturday morning. So for all those reasons, I think he's appropriate for release to pretrial services.
Well, I think what the court, the fact that this was not possession in the commission of a violent offense, despite the history, I think it's what's apparent to the court. So in light of that, I think, Mr. Field, I'm going to give you a chance here. I'm going to release you to pretrial services supervision. The court is going to order that you not possess any firearms or weapons and surrender any firearms in your possession. Follow monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. Court will appoint the Pima County Public Defender's Office to represent you. And you have a preliminary hearing that is tentatively set at this time, February 11, 2025, 1:30 p.m. And so that hearing may be moved. And so talk to your public defender about if that hearing is still going to happen at the stated time. Any questions at this time? Okay, and then you are excused. Thank you, sir.
We'll go on later today. You have to report to them, condition of release, call them tomorrow. So you're gonna get a lawyer. Call them tomorrow. Call both. Yeah. You have to ongoing contact them. Yeah. Tomorrow you'll have an attorney. And that date will most likely change, so stay in touch. Okay, thank you very much again.
Baron? Yes.
All right. Sir, can you go ahead and state your name, please?
Jose Flor Rivera III.
Counsel, do you want me to waive reading? I don't know if we have anybody else in the room.
Are you good?
One moment, Your Honor. I'm trying to find out who I've got here.
Jose Flor Rivera.
Yeah, but I think this one we need to waive reading.
Okay. So Mr. Rivera, you're here today on some charges which you may be able to see or you can discuss alternatively with counsel there, but you are being charged for currently of 2 felony offenses, essentially for failure to report as to various matters. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel as to these charges, and there is counsel seated next to you. The state is recommending bond be set in the amount of $2,500 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor.
And then Mr. Knox?
Your Honor, Mr. Rivera's underlying offense that this charge stems from occurred when he was 18, 19 years old. That was 2007. He has a safe place to reside. He has worked as a tile worker. And he's been, how long you been in Tucson? 5 years?
5 years.
Yeah. Community ties, employment, residence. For all those reasons, I think he's appropriate for release to pretrial.
Given the nature of the charges that are indicated, the court does believe that some bond is appropriate, but the court will not institute the bond in the amount indicated or recommended by the state. The court will set bond in the amount of $1,000 cash or secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Court will further order that the defendant, as a release condition of release, shall rectify any reporting deficiencies within.
Can I please get anybody get a bond? Like I can't post a bond, bro. I've just started working. Like I understand about the registry. I understand I need the registry. I understand all that. I missed the date. It was complete.
Don't talk anymore about the event.
I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to see if I can get back out. I gotta continue work, bro. I control my household. I pay my household bills. I'm the main supplier of my house. Main support of my house. I'm asking, is there any way I can get out pre-trial without any bond, please? I mean, I understand the bond. This events happened when I was 18. I'm 36 years old right now. I mean, I've been out here 5 years now. This is the first time I've ever missed anything like that, sir. First time I ever missed anything like that. I'm just asking if I please
think it over.
So, in general, Mr. Rivera, the information that's available to me right now contradicts what you're saying right now. Talk to your appointed counsel, who could be the Pima County Public Defender's Office, to see if the bond can be reduced in the near future. The court is going to remain keep dollar cash secured with release to pretrial services. Any other questions before we conclude? Just to indicate, preliminary hearing is set February 3rd, 2025 at 1:30.
February 3rd.
I'll explain all this to you. Do you have any other questions for the judge? And then I'll explain this. Right, so you're held on 1,000. Call tomorrow. You'll have an attorney assigned, and they can tell you your options and what you can do about that. And the state will either charge you or not by the attorney's information.
Shit for my
City of address or your regional license? Your Honor, did we address the city court issues for Mr. Rivera?
We did not actually. Let's go ahead and do that real quick if we can.
I mean, Mr. Rivera back.
City court cases too, like the judge.
So, Mr. Rivera, welcome back. Court's going to have a little bit of a change of heart as to your bond. The court's going to reduce bond in the previous case to $500 cash or secured instead of the 1,000. To the
bond in a different case.
matter. However, we do have a city court matter that we need to address, so the court will then order that bond set in that previous matter for the felony charges. $500 cash or secured. Same others are. Intact, and then we'll go ahead. Okay. Just one moment. We have something hacking up on the computer here and then we'll move forward.
Well, that's right. No.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Rivera, we do have some additional, charges which are pending, in the city court for criminal, damage and drug paraphernalia. These are misdemeanor offenses. You do have a right to remain silent. Because you're being held on today's date, the court wants to give you an opportunity for time served. So the court is, and does have to hold you on a bond technically, but the court's going to set nominal bond in the amount of $50 cash or secured as to this offense. Court will order that, you not possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. City Public Defender's Office is appointed to represent you. And then give me one moment. I need to find your, one moment here. Do we have oh, here it is. Okay. Your next court date in this matter is, January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. So January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. at City Court. That'll be a separate court hearing that you need to make sure to attend. Failure to appear can result in a warrant being issued. If you're still incarcerated, they should make arrangements for you to be present. And then at this point, sir, you should be good to go. Any questions?
Two matters. Felony matter 500, call your attorney tomorrow. City misdemeanor matter. This is the court hearing. If you're still in here, they'll do it on video. If you're out, make sure you go. $50 on that. Now you're all set.
You're all set. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Arthur Joseph Escobar.
Mr. Esquivel, you're here today on two felony matters, and let me just get dangerous drug possession and also possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you to assist you. The state is recommending that you be released to third-party supervision of pretrial services and to set a steps hearing for you. Is that the recommendation, Mr. Poston?
It is.
And Mr. Knock is, I can explain the steps hearing in just a moment, but is your client willing to waive time?
I'll need to ask one moment, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are willing to waive time.
Okay, Mr. Esquivel, I've got some court dates to tell you about. The court is going to order releasing third-party supervision of pretrial services, and you are to abstain from the use of alcohol or illegal drugs and follow monitoring and treatment as directed by pretrial services. Pima County Public Defender's Office will be appointed. Your next court dates in this matter, you have your steps hearing, January 29, 2025, so next week, 9:00 a.m. at Pima County Superior Court, and that'll be an in-person hearing. Additionally, you have a preliminary hearing as to these charges, March 10, 2025, 1:30 p.m. Make sure that you appear at future proceedings. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. Do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, sir.
Also, make sure you keep in touch with pretrial services. That is a common error that folks make. They don't check in, and then a warrant gets issued, and then you're back here all over again. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I'll check in as soon as possible.
Excellent. And then, so you're excused. Thank you, Mr. Esquivel.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? We got one more, actually. We got one more from Mr. Esquivel with Miranda, so just one moment.
It's going to be a misdemeanor. So you have to report to them.
Okay.
You can call there after tomorrow. You'll be assigned. But no matter what, show up for that day. So they're required. Learn the knowledge today. Yeah. Well, depending on the misdemeanor.
So, Mr. Esquivel, you also, there was a failure to appear for some driving issues, some traffic issues from 2021 at Monria Municipal Court. What the court's going to do is, since the court's releasing on the other charges, I'm going to give you a chance to go and make right on those misdemeanor charges at Marana City Court. So the court will be ordering, releasing you on this, but you need to make sure to appear at the next hearing in Marana City Court, which I'm going to tell you about. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest again. That court date in Marana, March 5th, 2025, 10 o'clock a.m. And that's at the municipal court there in Marana on Civic Center Drive. Do you have any questions about that?
No, sir.
That should be everything. So you are excused. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Make sure you show up on the 29th. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, that's what we're going to see about it.
Morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Stevenson, L. Fairley.
Okay, Mr. Fairley, you're here today on 3 charges of disorderly conduct with a firearm, misconduct involving weapons, and then 2 aggravated assault charges with a firearm. These are felony offenses. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. State is recommending that bond be set in the amount of $5,000 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. And then Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor, state would just like to impress upon the court that this person fired a firearm into the dirt and bullets ricochet. Bullets can ricochet and hit people. He could have killed somebody. And then he decided to point the weapon at 2 people. It's also reported he is a prohibited possessor. This person has demonstrated they are a danger to the community. 5,000.
Mr. Knox?
Your Honor, before I talk about release conditions, I'd like to make a probable cause argument about the prohibited possessor charge. He doesn't have a felony history. There's nothing included in the probable cause statement to let us know where he became a prohibited possessor.
Well, I know that the probable cause statement states that he admitted to being a prohibited possessor, which on its face appears to be sufficient. But Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor, let me log into the system. I have every expectation I'm going to find a misdemeanor involving domestic violence that would deprive him of his Second Amendment rights. One moment, please.
And then Mr. Knox, is there any, well, actually, let me let Mr. Poston look at that before we have you respond.
Checking.
Yes, please. Thanks.
One moment. Nope. Once. Your Honor, I don't see it. Unless we're looking at a city court case, which I believe the court has the access to. I'm looking in that particular database. I got nothing, Honor. It looks like the court will have, this police will have to go back and reinvestigate for the prohibited possessor, but it looked like he stated it, but that's where we're at.
Okay, so I'll address that. It sounds like there's probably not probable causes to that. I'll make a finding as to that in just a moment. Mr. Knox, any additional record as to bond?
Yes, Your Honor, we're looking at a defendant with no evidence of a criminal history. Pretrial didn't find anything. He's been in Tucson area for 3 years, well enough to establish community ties. He's self-employed as a landscaper. And Your Honor, pretrial has him as a level 1. And according to their matrix, even at its worst, a level 1 still means 89% likely to appear or higher, and 89% likely to not come in with new felony charges or higher. So for all those reasons, I think he's appropriate for release to pretrial services.
Your Honor, if I may.
Go ahead.
They would just like to emphasize the fact that this person doesn't seem to dispute the firing of the fire. State would like to point out the inherent risk of shooting a weapon into the dirt, and much less pointing.
So,
thank you, counsel. Wasn't going to be my precise point, but I'll go ahead and submit on that.
Okay. Well, I think what's apparent to the court or glaring to the court is the witness allegation of a handgun being pointed in his direction. I think that in and of itself is most concerning for the court. Under all the circumstances, court will adopt the state's recommendation, bond $5,000 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Court will find no probable cause as to the prohibited possessor charge under 13-3102A4, and that charge is dismissed without prejudice. Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed. Conditions of release include no alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and any weapons shall be surrendered, and to follow monitoring and treatment as directed by pretrial services. Next hearing in this matter, February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. for a preliminary hearing. And anything further before we conclude?
We made our argument with this decision. So I'm recommending not saying anything else right now. And I'm recommending that we say thank you, Your Honor, and I put it on mute when you and I talk. Is that your plan? Okay.
All right, I'll give you about 20 seconds. Thanks, folks.
That's your plan? Okay.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Nice to meet
Garate?
you.
Sir, go ahead and state your first and last name, please.
Antonio Garate?
Mr. Gratte, we've got you here on a couple of matters. We're going to talk first about a failure to appear in a warrant that was issued back in June of 2024 related to 2 counts of, fraudulent schemes and artifices and theft. So in general, you do have these pending felony offenses. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel, and counsel is seated next to you to assist you. The state is recommending bond be set in the amount of $7,800, which is consistent with the warrant amount. And then any additional record, Mr. Poston?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Knox?
Just a moment, please, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'm looking at some prior history. We got last offense from 2020. Looks like he appeared, followed it through, completed successfully 2024. He actually turned himself in on this. And in addition to that, he owns his own barbershop. He's married, he's got children, he's got a house to go to. So for all those reasons, I think he's appropriate for release to pretrial services.
Well, in review of the pretrial services report, which I think was very helpful in this case, and it always is, but I think it was particularly helpful in this case. What stood out to the court was that there was no previous arrest, and the defendant did make efforts to make good on this before he was ultimately incarcerated. So, Mr. Grazzi, I'm going to give you a chance to do right on this without being further incarcerated. So the court will order that you be released to third-party supervision of pretrial services. Make sure to follow any monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. The court will appoint the Pima County Public Defender's Office to represent you, and will any prior release conditions on these June 2024 charges are affirmed. Your next court date is another arraignment, January 25th, 2025, 1:30 p.m., and that's at the Superior Court. Make sure that you appear at that hearing, January 29, 1:30 p.m. at Superior Court. Failure to appear will result in a warrant being issued again. And given the history of this case, we could start seeing 5 digits with the bond amount. So does that all make sense?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
You said I had another matter?
Yeah, we have an Oro Valley matter we're going to do next.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and approve that. And we have another matter out of Oro Valley. It's for failure to appear. It appears to be for a traffic-related offense. Yeah, so driving with suspended license from 2023. Since the court's releasing you on today's date as to the other matter, I'm going to give you a chance again. Make sure that you go to the Oro Valley City Court to resolve this. So you are being released on your promise to appear at the Oro Valley City Court. That court date is March 5th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. And that'll be at the Oro Valley City Court. Make sure that you appear. Failure to appear could result in a warrant being issued. Any other questions, sir, at this time?
No, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Then avail yourself of your chance to resolve these issues. You are excused. Thank you, sir.
I sure will.
Thank you, sir. You have to report to pretrial ongoing. Call them after tomorrow. Find your lawyer.
Okay.
Okay. No matter what, you're always calling them. Tomorrow, when you get out, you call them.
Okay.
Tomorrow you call in and you go to court.
I will.
You show up in person for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank yourself in.
Hernandez Salinas.
I will.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning, sir. State
Good morning.
your name.
Israel Jesus Hernandez Salinas.
Mr. Hernandez Salinas, you're here today on 3 felony charges of aggravated domestic violence. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel as to these charges, and there is counsel seated next to you to assist you. The state is recommending bond be set in the amount of $75,000 plus release to pretrial services as concurrent bond across all 3 cases. Any additional record, Mr. Poston?
Your Honor, the state needs to emphasize the sheer continuance and the sheer persistence of the violence in these cases. In the first case, it is alleged that the defendant went to the victim's apartment. He was upset about child custody arrangements, so he opted to force entry into the apartment, strike and punch her several times, shouting at her, and then impeded her breathing by covering her mouth. The court need not be reminded of the statistics regarding lethality when it comes with domestic relations and impeding one's airway. Then he, on the way out, threw a rock through the victim's window, damaging it. Next, we have a situation where he felt disrespected in front of his friends, so he decided to punch the victim in the face several times, grab her by the hair, and scream at her because she would not lend him money. She suffered cuts and bruises on this one. And then most recently, he entered the apartment complex of the victim, started banging on the door, trying to wake the victim up. He tried to open the door, and there is alleged that there are forensics linking and physical evidence linking the defendant to the scene, not only the victim's testimony. This individual is violent towards the mother of his child. He is escalating, and the state is concerned that he is a continual risk to the victim, and this person could end up inflicting serious injury or worse on his victim if he is not stopped. Thank you.
Mr. Knox.
Your Honor, I'm looking at a DOC hold, but I think there's the possibility that may expire in the coming weeks. And I'll make note that Mr. Hernandez Selenas already lives separate from the victim, so he doesn't need to find new residence. He is full-time employed as a cook at a location in the Tucson Mall. And for those reasons, I think a bond reduction is appropriate.
Okay, at this time, the court will adopt the state's recommendation. Bond is set $75,000 concurrent across all 3 cases with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. I think that right now we're dealing with aggravated domestic violence charges. I think if we don't take it seriously this time, the next time we are all together, it's going to be for homicide. And so I want to prevent that. And additionally, there's that DOC, if the DOC hold is going to expire, that even bolsters the court's conclusion about putting bond in place. So $75,000 cash is secured, and that will be concurrent across all 3 cases. And next hearing for the defendant is preliminary hearing February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. And that will be at the Pima County Justice Court. And I have some things to do here on the computer system here. Any questions or argument, Mr. Knox or Mr. Hernandez Salinas, before we conclude? That is going to be the Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, with that then, Mr. Hernandez Salinas, you are excused.
It's all 3 cases, so it's temporary. If your attorney, then maybe you're going to reduce. You'll get appointed somebody. Okay, good. Thank you.
And then, Jail, if you just give me one moment to get these things written up here on the case files, and then I can let you know.
That's your Honor.
Okay, ready to go with the next defendant.
Roelle Lopez, come on up.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you state your name, please?
Rochelle Lopez.
Ms. Lopez, you're here today. It looks like there was a warrant issued for failure to appear as to some felony charges arising in 2023 for burglary and theft. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And specifically, it looks like there was a initial appearance or arraignment for which he had failed to appear back on September 15, 2023. So this warrant's been out for quite a long time. The state is recommending that bond continue in the amount of $5,500, which is the warrant amount. Any additional record, Mr. Poston?
No, Judge.
And then Mr. Knox?
Just a brief moment, please, Your Honor. Sorry.
Just
One more moment. Your Honor, in the interim and a reason for the FTA over, I don't know what time in 2023, but well over a year ago, she was fleeing some domestic violence. She's since established a residence with a friend. has a safe place to go. She's managed to, despite some felony history, hasn't picked up any charges since this charge and the failure to appear. And she is a lifelong resident of Tucson and did not have stable housing at the time and does now. So for those reasons, oh, and also pretrial put her on a level 2 and nonviolent. And I made the matrix argument, you know, the high percentage likability of appearing, the high percentage probability of not coming in with new charges, bolstered by the fact that she stayed out of trouble since this. So for those reasons, I'm requesting release to pretrial services.
I think if we had a situation that was similar to the individual earlier where there was no previous initial appearance, I think I may be inclined to release the pretrial, but I think we need to secure appearance of the defendant in this matter, but I'm not going to do it at the same bond level recommended by the state. So the bond will be set $1,000 cash or secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. The defendant shall follow monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed. Prior release conditions are affirmed, and also the defendant needs to contact pretrial services within 48 hours of release. Next court hearing is an arraignment, January 29, 2025, 1:30 p.m. at Superior Court. And then, Ms. Lopez, please make sure that you appear at all future hearings. Failure to appear can result in a warrant being issued. If you do post this bond, you still need to go to that arraignment, otherwise a new warrant could be issued. Any questions at this time? Okay, you're excused. Thank you.
If you can post it, you're out, make sure you come in here for this court date. If you're still in, tomorrow you call and find out who your attorney is, see if they can do anything about that. And then come to issue that day. Yes.
Good morning, sir. State your name, please.
Jesus Martinez.
Mr. Martinez, you're here today on a charge of prohibited possession of a firearm. This is a class 2 felony. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The state is recommending, and you do have a right to assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you to assist you if you have any questions. The state is recommending bond in the amount of $5,000 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. And then, Mr. Poston, any additional record?
One moment, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Mr. Knox.
Your Honor, Mr. Martinez's prior history all predates 2001. So he's got 24 years of doing the right thing. And he's a lifelong resident of Tucson, has employment in landscaping and maintenance. And pretrials matrix has him on level 2 with that high likelihood of avoiding a new charge and high likelihood of appearing. And for all those reasons, I do think he's appropriate for release to pretrial services.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the PSA is 4 and 3 respectively. We've got, and I do note that the prior charges are fairly old, but we do have prior violent offenses which are indicated. Based upon all the information before the court will set bond in this matter, $1,500 cash or secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. As conditions of release, if bond is posted, no firearms or weapons, and follow monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed. Next court date, February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. at the Justice Court. Failure to appear, Mr. Martinez, at future hearings could result in a warrant being issued, so please make sure that you appear at future hearings. If you are still incarcerated by time of the next hearings, you should be made available virtually or in person for those hearings. Any questions at this time? Okay, with that, you are excused. Thank you, sir.
It depends on the agency. If you can find one, you can find one. If you're still in, get with your attorney. You'll have one tomorrow. So
Thank you. Donnie Medina.
Okay, good morning, sir. State your name, please.
I don't even know your names.
Mr. Medina, you're here today on a few matters with the Justice Court, with looks like Marana City Court, and then we also have some Tucson City Court charges. So we're going to do them one at a time. First matter we'll talk about are the felony charges you have for theft of means of transportation, burglary in the 3rd degree, possession of a firearm by a prohibited possessor, and an unlawful possession of narcotic drug. These are felony offenses. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you to assist you. The state is recommending bond be set in the amount of $15,000 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Any additional record, Mr. Poston?
I'm just reiterating, he has a history of failing to appear, was likely facing prison time if convicted. 6 out of 6 apprehended with a stolen motorcycle, a 40 cal pistol, and dealer weight drug amounts.
Thank you, Mr. Poston. Mr. Knox?
Your Honor, Mr. Medina is married. He's got community ties here. He's got a part-time job that he can go to, and these allegations today are nonviolent. For that reason, I think a much lower bond, perhaps 5,000, is more appropriate.
Well, when I was reviewing this case, I had actually it was contemplating higher bond than what was set by the state. So I think under the circumstances, the state's recommendation is reasonable. $15,000 cash and secured bond with release to pretrial services if bond is posted as the order of the court. Conditions of release will include no alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, no contact with any alleged victims, do not go to the victim's residence or workplace. Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed to represent the defendant. Next court date will be for these charges, February 3rd, 2025 at the 1:30 p.m. That's preliminary hearing at the Pima County Justice Court. Let's go ahead and talk about the Marana case now at this time. This is for failure to appear as to a drug paraphernalia charge in Marana City Court. Given that the defendant is being held on the felony charges, court will put nominal bond in this case in order to allow for any time served. Bond will be set in the amount of $100, cash or secured. Counsel will be appointed, Janet Altschuler. There is actually a case management conference on this matter today at noon for these charges. So that's 122 at 12 o'clock p.m. At Marana City Court, and any prior release conditions are affirmed. So we'll go ahead and then now move on to the city court charges, which I understand are failure to appear. And so, yeah, we have substantial failure to appear across 3 different citation numbers for matters arising in 2022 and 2024. Given that the defendant is being held on these other charges, court will institute additional nominal bond in the amount of $100, cash or secured. Court will appoint the city public defender's office to represent the defendant. Will indicate any prior release conditions are affirmed. And so then we've got a litany of dates. In addition to the previous dates indicated already, we have an additional court date, January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. with Tucson City Court Judge Maldonado presiding. And so, Mr. Medina, anything you need clarified at this point before we conclude? Okay, with that then, if you want to speak with counsel there, you're welcome to, otherwise you're excused. Thank you.
Used to judge something.
Yes, in 30.
Okay, morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Lawrence Ramirez.
Mr. Ramirez, we've got you here today on a couple of matters. We'll take them one at a time. We have a felony charge of burglary in the 3rd degree, which is the first offense we're talking about today. It's a class 4 felony. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you to assist you. As to this matter, the state is recommending bond be set in the amount of $1,500 plus release to pretrial services. And any additional record, Mr. Poston?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and then, Mr. Knox?
Your Honor, this was a DNA blood match from a scene from an incident in December of 2021, and Mr. Ramirez concluded his most recent case, April of 2022, has stayed out of trouble since then. He's got a job to go to. Let me ask him one more question, please.
Your Honor, while counsel speaks to his client, I would note that he finished his last couple of cases by having his probation terminated unsuccessfully. And he is a 6 out of 6 on both scales, so 1,500 is a gift, all things considered.
The last thing to add is that he does have his own house. He's got a safe residence to return to. So I know state's asking 1,500. I think enhanced supervision of pretrial services would work here, Your Honor.
I think under the circumstances, I did note the same information the state just indicated about looks like 3 prior cases. Probation was terminated on all 3 cases. I just don't know that release to pretrial services is going to be sufficient to ensure engagement and compliance. So at this time, the court is going to accept the state's recommendation, $1,500 cash is secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Court will order that the defendant now go back to the incident location. Pima County Legal Defender's Office is appointed to represent the defendants. We have a preliminary hearing set February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. as the next hearing. And then we have a city court matter to take care of as well. Failure to appear. Okay, and so for the city court matter, we have, looks like 3 failures to appear plus a new drug paraphernalia charge. Failures to appear per incidents occurring 2022, 2023, and 2024. In order to secure the defendant's appearance, and additionally, because he's already being held, court will set nominal bond in the amount of $100, cash is secured, and will appoint the city public defender's office to represent the defendant. Will order no alcohol or illegal drugs to be possessed or used by the defendant. Next court date, January 31st, 2025, 2:00 p.m. at the city court. That's January 31st at 2:00 p.m. for next court date at the city court. Mr. Ramirez, in general, failure to appear at future hearings could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. And then any questions? If not, if you want to speak to the attorney who's there, you may briefly, and then you'll be excused.
Ms. Painter, if you're still in, they'll do it on video. This is the felony held on 1,500. The legal defender you got called tomorrow. They'll have somebody assigned to see if they can do anything about that. 1,500. What's next? What dates? So, call your legal defender tomorrow. Yeah.
Russell? All the way out to the left-hand side.
Judge here.
Good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Sam Pendergrass, Russell.
Mr. Russell, you're here today on a couple of charges of endangerment and criminal damage. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. And these are felony offenses. You do have a right to the assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you. Mr. Poston, this is not, there's no DUI charge here?
It wouldn't appear, Your Honor. However, I would say it's likely in the offing.
Okay. All right. And so the state at this time then, as to the current charges, is recommending bond be set $2,500 plus release to pretrial services. And then Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor, the state would note the defendant's alleged lack of candor and honesty. He claimed that the firefighters put the car that he drove up, put the fire car that was found on the curb up there, and that was the damage to the bus stop that his vehicle is alleged to have caused. The initial DUI investigation was pretty conclusive, and then the subsequent SFSTs were refused. The chemical test is pending. The damage is somewhere north of $5,000, and this would be assuming for the sake of argument, it went to a conviction, his third DUI.
Okay, and Mr. Knox.
Your Honor, the prior history here is from 2013 and 2014. Mr. Russell's 32 now, so that puts him around 20 and 21 then. I'm guessing he thought he had this particular demon tamed, and it turns out no. But I will note pretrial services has him at level 1. He's got 6 years here in the Tucson area, full-time employment. No reason to think that he's not going to appear. And I'm sure the court would set proper release conditions to pretrial that would ensure that he comes in, sees this through without new charge.
Well, I think as with another case we had this morning, when I was preparing for these hearings today, I initially had noted that prospective bond was going to be at a lot higher level than what's being recommended by the state. Under the circumstances, I'm very concerned about the history of DUI, even though it's not being specifically charged, but we seem to have, I think the fact that it would happen several years ago and then has apparently reemerged in conduct that caused the current incident, I think that's a worse circumstance than if it just happened. Nonetheless, court will adopt the state's recommendation. Bond is set $2,500, cash is secured, released to pretrial services if bond is posted. The release conditions will include not to drive without a valid license, and furthermore, that the defendant is ordered not to operate a motor vehicle until further court order. No alcohol or illegal drugs, monitoring and treatment as directed by pretrial services once bond is posted. And Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed. Preliminary hearing set for the defendant February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. And then any questions before we conclude?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and thank you. You're excused. If that's what it says, that's fine. Yeah.
Yep. You like,
Okay, sir, please state your name.
I'm Ryan Wheeler.
Mr. Ehrlich, you're here today on some felony charges of unlawful flight from law enforcement, burglary, and theft of means of transportation. These are felony offenses. As I said, you do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. State is recommending bond be set in the amount of $5,000 plus release to pretrial services. Any additional record, Mr. Poston?
State would note his substantial criminal record and the inherent nature of the accusations. Thank you.
Mr. Knox?
Your Honor, Mr. Uhlig has his own house to return to. He's got a safe place to go. He's got 20 years of ties here, and pretrial services has him as level 2, and the current allegations are nonviolent. For those reasons, I think he possibly released pretrial services, but at a minimum, a reduction in the state's bond request.
Looking at the criminal history, it looks like we have some relatively dated history for burglary and theft in a previous jurisdiction. We had additionally some more recent charges, although still dated as to looks like a shoplifting matter, but looks like there's a 4 and 4 on the NC and FTA scales. And so I think court will agree with the defense. I think a reduction in bond, what's being recommended, is appropriate, but court will institute bond in the amount of $1,500 cash or secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted, with the defendant to follow monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services if bond is posted. Pima County Public Defender's Office will be appointed. Preliminary hearing set February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. That'll be the next hearing. And then any questions before we conclude?
Good questions with the judge, and I'll go over this with you.
Okay, so you and I can talk about that. That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, ma'am. State your name, please.
Christina Valverde.
Ms. Valverde, you're here today on a charge of disorderly conduct with a deadly weapon. which is a felony offense. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel, and there is counsel seated next to you to assist you. State is recommending bond be set in the amount of $10,000 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor, the state's particularly concerned about the fact that this person was threatening the victim with a knife in the presence of children. And what I see is that notwithstanding the victim's stance that be it not concerned about further contact, the state is still given pause that this was an ag assault with a knife, and there was also destruction of property in the presence of kids. $10,000.
And Mr. Knox.
Your Honor, we're looking at no felony history for someone who's age 37. That's a good track record. She's a level 1 with pretrial services with a 1 and a 1, so no indication that she wouldn't appear. And I think the idea here is address mental health issues and live separate. So she's got a friend's house that she can go to. I've got Hope Services sitting next to me in the jail room right here that I'll get her connected. Given the indication that mental health issues need to be addressed, that it's far more likely to be exacerbated if held in the jail and far more able to be addressed if she's released to the community. So for all those reasons, I think she's appropriate for release to pretrial services, and we'll connect her with Hope Services right now.
Just one moment. I'm looking at something really quick. Okay. I think what's standing out for the court is that it appears from the probable cause statement that not beyond the severity of the incident in and of itself, but appears that 2 of the children of the victim were able to verify accounts. And so that suggests that they were present for this, which I think adds an additional layer of severity on this. And so I think that contributes to the court's finding that release is not currently appropriate based upon danger to the community. So the court, however, will institute lower bond in the amount of $5,000 cash or secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Conditions of release include no alcohol or illegal drugs, no acts of domestic violence, follow monitoring and treatment as directed by pretrial services, no firearms or weapons, no contact with the victim, Mr. Dreschler, or with his children. Additionally, the court will order that the defendant shall obtain a mental health assessment at a local behavioral health agency within 30 days of release. Court will appoint the Pima County Public Defender's Office to represent the defendant. Preliminary hearing set February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. And I think that should do it. Any questions before we conclude?
I'll address this with you. Do you have any questions for the judge? That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, so when you're all done, your excuse. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Robert Earl Williams.
Mr. Williams, we're seeing you today on felony charges of narcotic drug for sale, transport, possession of narcotic drug, and possession of drug paraphernalia. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel, and there is counsel seated next to you to answer your questions. State is recommending bond be set on these felony matters in the amount of $7,500 plus release to pretrial services. Mr. Poston, any additional record?
Your Honor, the state would note the volume of substances that he was caught with, and one moment while I pull up a different screen. And it is a sales case, so steps is not appropriate in this matter. And looking at the defendant's history, we have, it's rather extensive. We have him just off of sentencing or parole in 2022 for Ag DV. We've got burglary, we've got possession, we've got ag assault, and we've got, again, drugs. Your Honor, this person is no stranger to the system and is barely off of probation, and he's now not just possessing but also selling. Considering the statistics for death from these drugs, the state takes a hard line when it comes to dealing. 7,500.
And Mr. Knox?
Your Honor, I think this is far more better characterized as something called trapping, which is where somebody's selling a very small amount simply to feed their own habit. The allegation here is that he was found with 19 pills on him. This is not somebody making a living from this, but rather in the throes of addiction and trying to get to the next fix. Pretrial has him as a level 2. Looking at the history, I don't see any failures to appear. I don't see any evidence that Mr. Williams isn't going to come to his court hearing. He needs to get some treatment for his addiction that's far better addressed on the outside. It may be a stretch to request supervision of pretrial services, but again, if that's not in the offing, then a significant reduction in the bond request, I think, is appropriate here.
At this time, the court will order bond be set in the amount of $2,500 cash and secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Court will order as conditions of release, no alcohol or illegal drugs, and to follow any monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed. Additionally, preliminary hearing is set February 3rd, 2025. That's at 1:30 p.m. And that'll be at the Pima County Justice Court. Failure to appear at future hearings could result in a warrant being issued for your arrest. Sir, Mr. Williams, any questions at this time?
I'll address this with you. Do you have questions for the judge?
Yeah, I don't have money to bond out, so I mean,
Then I can talk. I'll be with you.
I mean, I would like to just like get out of pretrial services if possible.
So based upon what the court has seen in review of all the information presented in pretrial services report, the criminal history, the probable cause statement, the court doesn't find that that's currently appropriate, but you'll have an opportunity, as Mr. Knox is probably going to explain, to talk with your public defender about seeing if the bond can be reduced at a future point. But go ahead and talk with him about that. Any other questions at this time?
No.
All right, so just take a moment, Mr. Knox, and then we'll need to proceed.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I almost got you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, good morning, sir. Can you state your name, please?
Sano.
Mr. Isano, you're here today on felony charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel, and there is counsel seated next to you to assist you. The state is recommending bond be set in the amount of $15,000 plus release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Any additional record, Mr. Poston?
Your Honor, state just like to highlight the fact that he attacked his own father with a kitchen knife, broke property, broke a door down, and then stabbed a hole in a door in which his father was trying to a room in which his father was trying to take refuge from him. Dad apparently had to jump from a second floor window to preserve his own safety and ended up being quite injured in the process. We're not seeing any priors, Your Honor, but that doesn't mitigate the abject risk that this person has demonstrated he is to his own family. Thank you.
And Mr. Knox.
Your Honor, there's no criminal history of any kind here. This is categorized as a level 1, and Mr. Ucedo can secure separate housing, living with grandma. And I'll note that for pretrial services, the alleged victim here, Mr. Ucedo's father, does not object to Brandon's release, and would even welcome telephone contact, although that's not something I'm requesting as a condition. But I think what we're adding up to here is he can live somewhere else. There's no indication he won't appear. There's no history of any kind to indicate this is more than a one-off. So I think he is appropriate for release to pretrial services despite the state's high recommendation.
Given the severity of the charges and the probable cause statement, the court is going to institute bond, but it's going to be at a lower amount indicated. Court will order bond set in the amount of $5,000 cash or secured with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Conditions of release include no alcohol or illegal drugs, no acts of domestic violence, no firearms or weapons, follow monitoring and treatment as directed by pretrial services. The court is going to order further that there be no in-person contact permitted with Angel Ucedo until further court order. But that's based upon the victim's indication that he's okay with telephonic contact. So that's specifically no in-person contact with Mr. Ucedo. But the defendant is prohibited from going to the victim's residence or workplace and may return with a police escort to pick up any belongings. Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed. Preliminary hearing is set February 3rd, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. at the Justice Court. Mr. Ucedo, I'm just going to briefly address you. The court did set bond in this matter mainly based upon the violent nature. If you were an older defendant and you had a criminal history, the court would likely have imposed a substantially higher bond. And the court has taken your age and lack of criminal history into account with setting the current bond, but the court can't excuse the allegations, which are fairly serious and which could have resulted in serious bodily injury or death of the victim. And so I hope that this is a signal to you that anything that may have caused this incident to occur may need to be fixed in your life before this happens again. But I'm not asking you to say anything in response. I'm just letting you know my thoughts. Mr. Knox, anything additional on behalf of the defendant, or Mr. Ucedo, if you want to say anything with advice of counsel, you may.
I'll be talking about this with you. Do you have any other questions? That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Depend.
Okay, good morning, ma'am. Can you state your name, please?
Lara P.
Ms. Cepeda, we've got you here for a few matters today. We're going to take them one at a time. The first matter is a aggravated driving under the influence charge, which is a class 4 felony. You do have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have a right to assistance of counsel. There is counsel seated next to you. The state is recommending that bond be set as to this matter in the amount of $5,000 with release to pretrial services if bond is posted. Any additional record, Mr. Poston?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to note that this defendant has quite a few, the traffic record is quite long. we've got a DUI in 2017 in Tucson Municipal Court. It looks like we've got the present case, which I believe is the one ending in 26551. Excuse me, another case, not the present one, because this one is out of Tucson City Court. Looks like it's still pending. So she's out on release, and if that were a felony, the state would be asking for no bond based on what I see here. She's got multiple driving on a suspended license. She's got many to count in one sitting instances of FTA. This person is a flight risk. This person has one prior DUI, another one pending, and while the state is aware that that it'll never get to a jury, the PBT on this most recent one was a 0.371. 4 out of 6, Your Honor, the state is absolutely of the opinion that this person is a risk to anybody on the roads. And in fact, the $5,000 recommendation, I think, is a touch mild, and the state would ask for $7,500. Thank you.
And Mr. Knox.
Your Honor, I'll note that Ms. Cepeda is employed. She has that available. She does not have a felony history. I've seen Your Honor implement orders that if released, there's to be no operating motor vehicle of any kind without further court order. I think that would be appropriate here. And under these circumstances, request a bond of $2,500.
All right, so based upon the existence of other charges that we're going to be addressing today, based upon the stated facts and probable cause statement for today, honestly, I think that bond at $75,000 would normally be appropriate in this. I think that the defendant is showing a wanton disregard for her own safety and as well as the safety of others. That notwithstanding, I'm not going to exceed what the state has ordered in this case, but I'll order $7,500 cash or secured bond with release. Pretrial services if bond is posted. Defendant is ordered not to drive without a valid license, and the court is going to institute that additional provision. May not operate a motor vehicle until further court order. No alcohol or illegal drugs. Monitoring or treatment as directed by pretrial services. The court is further going to order that the defendant obtain an alcohol or substance abuse assessment within 30 days of release and follow any recommendations therefrom. As stated, Pima County Public Defender's Office is appointed. Preliminary hearing is set February 3rd, 2025, 1:30 p.m. At the Justice Court. And so that will conclude this one. We'll go ahead and go on to the next matter, which is a failure to appear as to some unrelated charges from 2023 for assault, disorderly conduct, 2 counts of disorderly conduct. Since the defendant is being held as to these charges, court will set nominal bond in this matter in the amount of $100 cash or secured. Court will appoint counsel as well. We'll go ahead and appoint, I'm just going to do, I appoint her a lot, but it's mainly because she doesn't have any restrictions. Anna Dennis will be appointed to represent the defendant in this matter. Next court date will be January 23rd, so tomorrow, 1:00 p.m. for a case management conference, January 23rd, 1:00 p.m. and that's to resolve the failures to appear for the assault and disorderly conduct charges in justice court. Court will indicate that prior release conditions are affirmed. And then we will go to the city court matter at this time. And the city court matter is, as Mr. Poston alluded to before, that's for failure to appear as to DUI with 3 different characterizations, 0.08, 0.15, and then extreme 0.20 or higher. And specifically that offense included the C of, let's find out. No, it's not immediately apparent to the court, but nonetheless, it's above a 0.2, which I think indicates that we've got a pattern of concerning conduct. But since the defendant is being held on these other charges, court will additionally set and to secure appearance as to the failures to appear. Bond set $100, cash for secured. Prior release conditions are affirmed. City Public Defender's Office is appointed to represent as to the DUI charges in city court. Next court date in city court, January 31st, 2025, 1:45 p.m. And that will be before Judge Cranshaw at the city court. Ms. Cepeda, you don't have to respond. I can see you're dissatisfied with the court's ruling, but I hope that this is a wake-up call. Your use of alcohol is a substantial problem in your life at this point, and I implore you to get any and all treatment that you can. Failure to do that, I think, will likely result then in much more severe charges and destruction, not only of potentially your life, but the life of members of the community. So please take these words to heart if you can. And at this point then, Mr. Knox, anything else that you want to say on behalf of the defendant?
Anything further? Do you have-
Is it okay if I say anything?
If it's about all this, I'll cover that with you. Do you have a different question for the judge?
Not a question. I'm not very displeased with the court. This is something that I think needs to happen for me. I have 4 kids, and if I don't stop drinking, I'm gonna die or I'm gonna lose my kids. So what you're doing for me is a very big favor. Yeah, it sucks I'm not with my kids, but I appreciate it because I need to wake up call before something worse happens.
And whether or not that these proceedings end up resulting in, let's say, Department of Child Safety involvement or something else, and you don't need to, this is being streamed, so you should not be, don't tell me if that's the case or not, but hypothetically, if that's the case.
They're with my sister. They're
What I'm just going to indicate is that if you have the opportunity to participate in any treatment, regardless, I just encourage you to go ahead and do that, because alcohol can be a very insidious and difficult thing to overcome. I think is you maybe you're coming to be aware of. So just something to keep in mind. I'm glad that you have a positive attitude about it. Keep moving forward in your recovery. The court wishes you the best in that regard. If you have no other questions, then you're free to talk to Mr. Knox, but that should cover it for today. Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
With that, then I think we're all done with the cases this morning. Thank